Greetings. Today I want to talk about Southeast Indiana parks. My book, Southeast Indiana Day Trips from my Road Trip Indiana series, will provide you with all of the information you need to explore the parks in the 9 counties in the southeastern part of the state. The book includes much more information than I can put in these podcasts. This is the first book in the series and the only one available now. I will have the rest. There will be 9 altogether as the year progresses. With rising gas prices, many Hoosiers, including my wife and myself, are choosing to vacation closer to home. Using this podcast, I will tell you about the many places here in Indiana you can visit and have some unique and fun experiences. I will now tell you about some of the wonderful parks in Southeast Indiana. There are more parks listed in the book than I have included in this podcast. However, I had to cut it off somewhere, so I'm just giving you mostly the state facilities. I'll begin in Clark County and Deem Lake. Deem Lake is a 194-acre lake that has a swimming beach with shower and bathhouse facilities, a handicap ramp, and a food concession stand. There is lake access for boating via a boat ramp. Motorboats are limited to the use of electric trolling motor. Rowboat rentals are available during the summer season. The Indiana Department of Natural Resources has classified Deem Lake as a multi-use property. This means that a multitude of outdoor activities can be going on at the same time. These activities include swimming, hiking, hunting, horseback riding, boating, picnicking, fishing, and camping. There are designated hunting areas in the facility away from other recreational activities. There are a number of different kinds of forest trails at Deem Lake. The 4 hiking trails cover a variety of terrain and total almost 7 miles. There are almost 80 miles of horse trails and 5 miles of mountain bike trails in the park. Camping facilities include a horseman's camp and 116 Class A sites. Class A facilities include electrical hookup, modern restrooms with showers, picnic table, fire ring, and a parking spur. Drinking water and a dump station are also available in the area. There are several picnic areas located around the facility, many with shelters. The Southern Indiana Park is a great place to visit and have a variety of unique outdoor experiences. Deem Lake State Recreation Area is located at 1217 Deem Lake Road, Borden, Indiana, 47106. You can phone 812-246-5421. And now, a bit about Clark State Forest. At the time of settlement, vast forests covered Indiana. These forests spawned many industries dependent on the high-quality hardwoods found in these forests. Many furniture makers located in the state and the shipbuilders along the Ohio River needed the lumber for shipbuilding. In addition, much of the valuable timber was exported. By 1900, many areas had become deforested. Concern rose that the valuable industries that created jobs would close due to a lack of wood. To deal with the problem, the Indiana General Assembly created the Indiana State Board of Forestry in 1901. In 1903, the state purchased land in Clark County and established Clark State Forest to experiment with forest management practices and grow tree seedlings. The state appointed Charles Deem to oversee the operation of the forest. The initial purchase of 2,023 acres has grown to over 20,000 acres of land today. Many other state forests have joined the ranks since then, preserving Indiana's forest heritage. Charles Deem lived from August 30th, 1865, until May the 29th, 1953. Charles entered life on a farm near Bluffton, Indiana, in Wells County, Indiana. His father taught him about plants as he grew up, spurring his lifelong interest in botany. He attended DePaul University but had to leave after a second year because he could not afford the tuition. He got a job as a clerk in a forestry, where long hours led to exhaustion and high stress. His doctor recommended long walks in the forest to relieve the stress. On these walks, Deem studied the plants and collected specimens. His interest in collection grew, and his collection soared to over 78,000 plants. Indiana University acquired his plant collection, and Deem joined the Academy of Sciences in Indiana. The Indiana governor became aware of Deem's work and appointed him as Indiana's first state forester in 1909. He moved to Clark State Forest to create an experimental forest laboratory. It was at his insistence that the state purchased an additional 2,000 acres and added it to the park. His work had long-lasting consequences to forestry in Indiana, and visitors can still see many of his experimental plantings. The Charles C. Deem Wilderness and Deem Lake State Recreation Area are named in his honor. The Civilian Conservation Corps used Clark State Forest as a training facility during the Great Depression in the 1930s. The CCC built many of the structures in the park as training exercises for the men to learn practices to use in other public lands. Clark State Forest is very hilly, and the narrow one-lane asphalt system of roads which wind their way through the forest makes it a very scenic drive, especially in the autumn when the leaves are turning. There are 8 sheltered picnic areas, the nicest ones overlooking Frank Lake. This is Old Frank, probably the best one, and New Frank to the southwest side of the lake. Clark State Forest, like all Indiana state forest, is a mixed-use facility. Hunting and fishing are permitted on the property. There is a popular gun range near Bowen Lake on the west end of the forest. The state of Indiana also sells timber from the forest. Sales from the state forest provide funds that help administer the state forest program. Clark State Forest is located on US 31, about 1 mile north of Henryville, Indiana, and about 10 miles south of Scottsburg, Indiana. This is Indiana's oldest state forest. It is one of the prettiest state forests also. There are about 100 miles of horse trails at Clark State Forest, as well as 6 parking lots for day users. Horse riding among the wooded hills of Clark State Forest is a popular activity, and the weekends will find many horse riders on the trails. Camping at the forest boasts 45 primitive sites in the campground. There are 7 public lakes ranging in size from 13 acres to 2 acres. Frank Lake at 13 is on the southeast side of Clark, the main road winding past it, and its 2 picnic areas. Fishing is permitted with an Indiana fishing license in any of these lakes. You can complete a scenic loop around the forest by turning right at the satellite dish antenna, right again at the Bloomington Trail. The road then climbs a rather impressive hill up to a fire tower on the left. Just before the fire tower is a picnic area with a very impressive view. On a clear day, the skyline of Louisville, Kentucky, 20 miles to the south, can be visible against a background of trees and sky. This leads back to US 31. Maps are available at the State Forest Office, which is just off US 31. The entrance about a quarter mile north of the entrance to Clark State Forest. The fire tower is the next item of interest on this road. 98 steps to the top. The tower is about 100 feet tall. At the author's last visit in 2022, the fire tower was closed. Clark State Forest, you can write them at Post Office Box 119, Henryville, Indiana, 47126. You can phone at 812-294-4306. Now we go to Brookville, Franklin County, and Brookville Lake. Brookville Lake encompasses 5,260 acres of land and has plenty of outdoor recreational opportunities for the water enthusiast. There are several marinas for the boat access, 2 swimming beaches, plenty of playgrounds and picnic areas, and several miles of hiking trails. Hunting and fishing opportunities are available in designated areas. It has 2 recreation areas. One of them is Mound State Recreation Area, and the other is Quakertown State Recreation Area. Brookville Lake is on State Road 101, just north of Brookville, Indiana. The mailing address is P.O. Box 100, Brookville, Indiana, 47012. You can phone 765-647-2657 for more information. The mapping address for Quakertown Recreation Area is 3056 Quakertown Ramp Road, Liberty, Indiana, 47353, and the mapping address for Mound State Recreation Area is 14108 State Road 101, Brookville, Indiana. Whitewater Memorial State Park offers visitors seasonal access to Brookville Lake, camping, picnicking, lake activities at 180-acre Whitewater Lake, and hiking. Established in 1949 as a memorial to the men and women who served in the military during World War II, residents of Union, Fayette, Wayne counties worked to acquire land for the park. Hikers will find almost 5 miles of trails at the park. The campsite has 236 electric sites and 45 primitive sites. Equestrians will find 45 primitive sites in the campground and 9 miles of bridle trails. Anglers can fish in the Whitewater Lake or at nearby Brookville Lake. Whitewater Lake has 2 boat ramps, one for Whitewater Lake and one for Brookville Lake. Picnickers will have several picnic areas and shelters. The camp store sells firewood, ice, as well as picnic and camping supplies. During the summer months, visitors can rent canoes, paddle boats, and rowboats. You can find Whitewater Memorial State Park at 1418 South State Road 101, Liberty, Indiana, 47353. You can call 765-458 888-888-5565 for more information. In Jefferson County, along the Ohio River, we find Clifty Falls State Park. There are two entrances to the 1,414-acre state park. The north entrance is on State Road 62, a few miles west of its intersection with US 421, near Madison. When you pull into this entrance, Clifty Shelter is to the right. This is a huge shelter with lots of room for picnicking. There is also a large field suitable for soccer, badminton, etc. The south entrance is on State Road 56, which also goes east into downtown Madison. Clifty Inn is on the left of this entrance after you ascend the hill. Clifty Falls State Park activities include picnicking, picnic shelters, camping, hiking, and viewing waterfalls. 12 hiking trails that total about 12 miles. Most of these trails are quite rugged. Trail 2, which follows the border-strewn Clifty Creek bed, makes a tough and beautiful hike. The stair on the north end that leads to Clifty Shelter has been out of service for years, so there is no access to the shelter from this trail. By stringing trails 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1, and 8, hikers can circumvent the cavern. This canyon loop is approximately 7 miles long. It will take about 6 hours of leisurely hiking. It is necessary to hike a short distance along Clifty Drive to connect with Trail 6 at Hickory Grove with Tunnel Falls. This loop follows the east rim of the canyon. Then it descends into the valley and crosses Clifty Creek. From the creek, it climbs a long, wildflower lush slope to follow the western rim of the canyon. The last trail of this loop is Trail 8 that emerges just north of Clifty Shelter. The Nature Center, located near Clifty Inn, has information on the park's interpretive and recreational programs. Situated on a bluff overlooking the Ohio River, Clifty Inn has 63 rooms. 37 of these have balconies with a view of the Ohio River and downtown Madison. There is also an indoor pool. There are also 4 suites and banquet conference rooms. Clifty Inn has a restaurant that serves breakfast, lunch, dinner 7 days a week. It has amenities that include an indoor swimming pool, large sun porch to sit back and relax while overlooking the river, and a sitting room. Clifty Inn is found at 1314 Clifty Hollow Road, Madison, Indiana. Clifty Falls draws its name from Clifty Falls that tumbles 60 feet into the canyon below. Clifty Falls is visible from an overlook near Clifty Shelter. Clifty Shelter is on the north end of the park. There are 3 other waterfalls in the park, none of which are visible from the main drive. Access Little Clifty Falls after taking a short hike of about 1/4 mile from Clifty Shelter. There are some impressive steps to climb on this falls. Tunnel Falls, so named because of its proximity to an old railroad tunnel, is just a short distance from the main drive to the park. Again, there is a stairway to descend the hill. Access to Hoffman Falls is by descending another long stair down the hill. The campground is near the center of the park. Signs will direct you there. The outdoor pool is near the campground. You may drive to it or use Trail 9, a 1 mile moderate hike from the campground. The campground has 106 Class A sites. It also has 59 Class C sites. Class A campers have access to modern restroom and shower facilities. Class C sites have pit toilets. Many sites will accommodate trailers. There are no modern wastewater hookups, however, a dump station is available. Clifty Falls State Park also has a swimming pool with water slide and wading pool. The pool is open from the Saturday before Memorial Day and no later than Labor Day. It is on the eastern part of the park and has access to Trails 9 and 10. A short hike up Trail 1 from the inn, the observation tower provides a stunning view of the Ohio River Valley. Nearby attractions to Clifty Falls State Park include Madison, nestled along the hills of the banks of the Ohio River, is one of the prettiest settings for a city and a state. With a population of about 12,000, it has a renovated downtown. Visitors will find antique shops, various retail establishments, bed and breakfast, and restaurants. The riverfront boasts an awesome riverfront park, brick sidewalks with landscape areas. This well-designed park is the site of the Madison Regatta. This event features the unlimited hydroplane race and boat races in which boats attain speeds of over 200 miles per hour. The Ohio River Bridge here crosses into Kentucky via US 421. State Road 56 east of Madison wends its way towards Rising Sun in Lawrenceburg. It is about an hour or so drive to the riverboat casinos and Rising Sun in Lawrenceburg. The highway hugs the river for most of the distance. It's a pretty drive. Along the way, you will pass the Markland locks and dams. This facility controls the river level and makes it consistently navigable for the barges. The locks are on the Kentucky side of the river. To visit them, drive over the bridge that spans the river over the dam. In Madison, you'll find Lamplighter Riverfront Park. Walk or picnic along the river as you enjoy this wonderful park. Riverboats frequently stop here, and there is dining on either overlooking the river. Lamplighter Riverfront Park is close to the Madison Main Street Business District. Public launch sites is available. Lamplighter Riverfront Park RV consists of about 2 acres on the east side of Madison. The trail that passes to the west runs all the way to the Ohio River, runs all along the Ohio River waterfront. Ohio outdoor lamps located in Lamplighter Riverfront Park provide plenty of nighttime illumination, and the park has plenty of picnic tables and benches to watch the mighty Ohio as it passes by. Located on the banks of the Ohio River between Broadway and West Street, Lamplighter Park features a gazebo, benches, and several overlooks which provide a panoramic scenic view. Lamplighter Riverfront Park, Madison, Indiana, between Broadway and West Street in Madison, Indiana. From Madison, we drive up US 421 to Big Oaks National Wildlife Refuge. Big Oaks began life as a test site for weapons during the opening days of World War II. It has evolved into a unique wildlife haven in southeastern Indiana. The refuge, located near Madison, Indiana on US 421, is one of 4 national wildlife refuges found in Indiana. It served as a weapons testing site until the end of the Cold War in the 1980s. Only a very small portion of Big Oaks National Wildlife Refuge is currently open to the public. This is because large tracts of land contain unexploded ordnance. This ordnance is, of course, quite hazardous. The 50,000-acre nature preserve occupies corners of 3 Indiana counties, Ripley, Jefferson, and Jennings. Big Oaks is the largest of Indiana's 3 wildlife preserves. The United States military opened the facility in 1940 for use as a weapons testing area. It saw extensive use during World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. After the 1980s, the facility's use began to wane, and the military closed it in 1995. The Indiana Air National Guard still uses a 1,000-acre parcel as a training range near the center of the property. Large areas of the preserve are off limits to the public due to the presence of the unexploded ordnance. The cost to remove this ordnance is prohibitive, so it will remain. It is important when visiting Big Oaks to stay in public-approved areas. After Indiana became a state in 1816, the Amerindian tribes that had occupied the land for hundreds of years had left. Small towns and farmsteads grew up in the rolling ground. It was a peaceful rural area with no large cities nearby. During the middle years of the Civil War, General John Hunt Morgan invaded the state. He crossed the Ohio River near Corydon, Indiana. He crossed the southern Indiana landscape with his 2,000 troops. Part of his route lay across northern portions of Big Oak. 2 Union officers, home on leave, managed to capture 2 of his men within the confines of the refuge. A monument now marks the spot where they performed this deed. Hostilities in Europe and Asia in the late 1930s alerted the Army to the need to test some of its munitions. On December 6, 1940, the military announced its intention to acquire land in southeastern Indiana. They chose this area because it was lightly populated and had nearby roads and rail lines. The military relocated over 400 families and began using it, now known as Jefferson Proving Ground, by the end of the year. Over the course of the military's use of the area, they surrounded it with a tall chain-link fence tarped by barbed wire. Several military personnel and officers served the base, which also employed many civilians in the area. Thus cut off, the land slowly reverted to forest and grassland, and wildlife thrived. By the time the facility closed in 1995, huge tracts had reverted to the forest it had originally been. Deer, wild turkey, and other wildlife thrived. After closing, the debate over what to do with it occurred over the next few years. At length, the government decided to turn it into a national wildlife refuge. Although the military still owns the land, the National Park Service manages the parcels within the refuge. 200 species of birds, 46 species of mammals, and 24 species of amphibians, along with 17 species of reptiles, are found in the refuge. The area around Old Timbers Lake on the northwest portion of the refuge is the only area currently open to the public. It is a 17-mile drive from the visitor center. The center is about 7 miles from Madison, Indiana on US 421. There are several miles of roadway around the lake, great for an afternoon drive or a day hike. Picnic areas are scattered around through the Big Oaks National Wildlife Refuge. Hours are Monday and Friday, 7 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., and the second and fourth Saturdays of each month. An admission charge is paid to enter the park. All visitors must view a safety video and sign an acknowledgement of danger form prior to entering the refuge. Visitors may participate in several activities in the refuge. Deer hunting and turkey hunting are permitted in designated areas at designated times. Anglers may fish from the 165-acre Old Timbers Lake. Bank fishing only as boats are not permitted in the lake. Hikers can hike designated trails or on the many roads in the public area. Photographers will find many subjects for their cameras as the wild scenery in the refuge is beautiful. Waterfowl and other wildlife will provide willing subjects. Refuge staff provides guided tours with advance reservation. There are several popular events scheduled throughout the year. See their website for brochures, event schedules, and current hours of operation. You can find Big Oaks National Wildlife Refuge at 1661 JPG Niblo Road, Madison, Indiana. In Jennings County, we find two parks, Muscatatuck Park and Kali Nature Preserve. Muscatatuck Park has the picnic area at Vinegar Mill Shelters, offers a superb view of the Muscatatuck River below it. Hikers can enjoy Trail 1, the River Trail, in mid-April for the wealth of wildflowers. It is also an ideal hike during the cooler fall temperatures when the fall foliage on the bluffs of the river is stunning. The park offers 7 miles of hiking trails on 4 trails. Many of the trails double as biking trails. During warm days, people enjoy frolicking and swimming in the Muscatatuck River. The park has some shelters available for rent or on a first-come, first-served basis. There are also playgrounds and basketball courts in the park. The public pool is only 2 miles away. Muscatatuck Park has an interesting history. Indiana purchased the property and established a 4-state park there in 1921 as Vinegar Mill State Park. They named it for the stone cutting mill that existed there during pioneer times on the bank of the Muscatatuck River. The state changed the name in 1922 to Muscatatuck State Park. They drew the name from the winding river that wends its way through the Indiana countryside. During the 1930s, the Civilian Conservation Corps built many of the structures in the park. These included the road leading down into the park, bridges, fire tower, and the stone steps at the river overlook of Vinegar Mill. Too small to serve as a state park, the state decommissioned it and used the grounds for quail and pheasant raising operations. This continued for a number of years until 1962. The state then used it for its new youth camp program. In 1967, the state offered to give the property to Jennings County to use as a park. After much discussion, the county took it. And after the park had deteriorated for several years, they began upgrades in the 1990s. The county moved the Walnut Grove one-room school there in 1991. They moved the Jennings County Visitor Center to the William Reed home in 1998. William Reed, the owner of Vinegar Mill, built this home about 1850. Locally cut timber make up the wooden frame. The stone foundation comes from stone cut from his stone cutting mill along the river. The brick were also made and kiln dried on the property. The state of Indiana used this home as a bed and breakfast inn during the time the park operated as a state park. The Jennings County Visitor Center used the home for several years. The Jennings County Parks and Recreation Department uses it for its offices now. The Visitors Bureau still keeps maps and information there. The school served as a one-room schoolhouse in Sand Creek Township from the time of its construction in 1912. The Jennings County Preservation Association took up the monumental task of moving and renovating the school in 1990. They cut it into 3 pieces and moved it to the site it now occupies in Muscatatuck Park. It opened in 1995 as a children's educational facility. They use it as an annual outing in which they dress in period clothing. They also get a lesson in pioneer life as it was during its early days. The Preservation Association will open it for group or individual tours. The school has a library with old books and other school items from its time as a schoolhouse. The campground has 8 pull-through sewer sites and 26 sites with water and electric. All sites have a fire ring and picnic tables. There is a campground shower facility and there is a dump site at the campground entrance. Most of the campground is shaded. Muscatatuck Park is found at 325 North State Road Highway 3, North Vernon, Indiana. You can call 812-346-2953. To visit the Violet and Louis Kali Nature Preserve, you will need to find County Road 40 East, about a mile east of downtown North Vernon, Indiana on US 50. The gravel road begins just east of the bridge across the Vernon Fork of the Muscatatuck River. After turning south on the gravel road, you will travel about a quarter mile to the parking lot, which is on the left. The road dead ends at this spot. The land for the Violet and Louis Kelly Nature Preserve was owned by Dr. Louis Kelly and his wife Violet. Dr. Kelly was a physician who practiced for over 50 years in North Vernon. His wife Violet established the first youth center in North Vernon and was awarded the Governor's Award for Community Service. The Nature Preserve is owned by the Jennings County Community Foundation, which manages the place in cooperation with the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. Dr. Louis Kelly lived from August the 15th, 1910 until March the 14th, 1999. The son of Salvatore and Rosa Vecchio Kelly, Louis was native to Canasta, New York. During high school, he played tennis, winning the Central New York Tennis Championship at 16 years old. He also played semi-professional baseball from that time until 1930. He graduated from Canasta, probably saying that wrong, high school in 1925 and attended Johns University, graduating in 1929. He attended St. Louis University Medical School, graduating from that school in 1934. While in St. Louis, he met and married Violet Beckett. The couple would have 3 children. Stationed at Fort Knox during World War II, he served as a captain. After the war, he migrated to North Vernon, where he practiced medicine for 50 years. During his lifetime, he became a Kentucky colonel and a Sagamore of the Wabash. The local American Legion honored him for his service to local veterans. Violet and Louis Kelly Nature Preserve consists of 180 acres. The trailhead for the self-guiding trail is adjacent to the parking lot on the same side of the road. The trail is just a bit over 2 miles long. There is a brochure available in a box at the trailhead which describes the stations along the trail. There is also a notepad for you to register just for fun. The trail begins with a pleasant stroll in the forest. It then follows the course of a spring-fed stream. The best part of this hike is the extensive section which follows the course of the Vernon Fork of the Muscatatuck River. Some of this hike is along high bluffs overlooking the river, but there are spots which allow access to sandbars extending out into the river. In early to mid-April, this portion of the trail is emblazoned with thousands of Virginia bluebells in full bloom. These flowers line the riverbank, the trail, sometimes passing through vast beds of them. There are also some old hemlock stands along the river on these limestone bluffs. The trail finishes up by passing through some open fields before finally exiting at the parking lot on the opposite side of the road. The Violet and Louis Kelly Nature Preserve Nature Trail is a fun and pretty place to visit. You can visit it at the 1200 North Private Road 40 East, North Vernon, Indiana. Just a few miles to the east on US 50 from the Kelly Nature Preserve, Versailles State Park. You'll find that. It's located east of Versailles, Indiana on US 50, and it is Indiana's second largest state park. It includes 5,905 acres, the 230-acre Versailles Lake, a public swimming pool, and one of the finest campgrounds in Indiana's state park system. The northern area of the park features an extensive mountain bike trail system. Horse trails occupy the southern reaches. Wonderful hiking trails, fishing, and boating are in between. The events at the park include the Bluegrass Festival, the first weekend in October, a magnificent 4th of July fireworks show, and a Halloween event in late October. During the Great Depression, the National Park Service determined that it would build a federal park at a site near Versailles, Indiana in August 1934. By fall, the Park Service had acquired 1,700 acres for what would be the first federal park in Indiana. They chose the area because it was marginal farm area. Called the Versailles Recreation Demonstration Area, the first 200 civilian Conservation Corps workers arrived at the Camp Lockery on June 14, 1935. The workers first constructed barracks, a mess hall, and administration building. These workers, who range in ages from 18 to 28 years old, developed many of the features still visible in the park. By 1943, the Park Service has expanded the project to 5,600 acres. In 1943, the National Park Service transferred ownership of the park to the Indiana Department of Natural Resources. The Versailles Recreation Demonstration Area became Versailles State Park. Workers constructed the Versailles Lake in 1954. The DNR has added new buildings and facilities to the park over the 300,000 men. By 1935, the CCC would have 2,600 camps with almost 3 million workers. The CCC built 97,000 miles of roadway, planted 2.3 billion trees, developed 800 state parks, and over 13,000 miles of hiking trails in those parks. Additionally, the men of the CCC stocked lakes and rivers with over 1 million fish and constructed 3,470 fire towers. To enlist in the CCC, the men had to be United States citizen, in good physical shape, single, and between the ages of 17 and 23. The CCC later raised this age to 26. The monthly pay was $30 per month. They had to send $25 per month to their families. The CCC added an educational program which enabled over 40,000 illiterate men to learn to read and write. Hikers will find almost 7 miles of hiking trails plus many miles of mountain bike trails in the park. During the summer months, a swimming pool is opened which features a water slide. The campground has 226 electric sites and a camp store. Picnic areas are scattered throughout the park and are available on a first-come, first-served basis. The picnic areas include tables, grills, toilet facilities, playground equipment, and playfields. Wood is available for the camp store during the summer months. Anglers with an Indiana state fishing license may cast their lines in Versailles Lake. Mountain bike trails total almost 17 miles and include several skill levels from beginning to advanced. A naturalist is available 3 days a week from Memorial Day to the middle of August at the Nature Center. A seasonal interpretive naturalist offers hikes and educational interpretive programs and evening activities. Visitors to the park can rent canoes, rowboats, and kayaks. A boat launch ramp allows boaters with small boats with electric trolling motors access to Versailles Lake. Equestrians have several miles of bridle trails to ride their steeds. You can find Versailles State Park at the mapping address 1004 US 50, Versailles, Indiana 47042. Next, we're going to go to Hardy Lake and campgrounds in Scott County, which is west of Versailles and North Vernon. Hardy Lake is a 741-acre lake located in northwestern portion of Scott County and northwestern Jefferson County. Hardy Lake is accessed from Indiana State Road 56. Hardy Lake Road intersects State Road 256 about 4 miles east of Austin, Indiana. Construction on the lake, which was originally called Quick Creek Reservoir after the creek that was dammed to create it, was completed in 1970. The full gamut of outdoor activities can be found at Hardy Lake. There is boating, fishing, hunting, hiking, and water skiing available. You may swim on the large beach or play sports at the volleyball or basketball courts. Any other sport can be played on the open playfields. There is an archery range and a trail devoted to sharpening the archery skills of the hunter. There are several other trails in the park also. The trails are all located near the Alpha and Sunnyside boat ramps, except the Archer Trail that is located elsewhere. The lake habitat provides many species of birds. These include red-necked grebe, mute swan, snow geese, black vulture. Red-shouldered hawks as well as others have been sighted there. You can contact the Hardy Lake staff at Hardy Lake and Campgrounds, 4171 East Herod Road, Scottsburg, Indiana, 47170. You can phone them at 812-794-3800. The mapping address is 5620 North Hardy Lake Road, Scottsburg, Indiana, 47170-8438. Find out more about these Indiana day trip destinations and many more by purchasing my book, Southeast Indiana Day Trips. The book includes contact information for all of these museums as well as information that includes state parks, nature preserves, golf courses, wineries, breweries, and much, much more. You can find it on my website, www.mossyfeetbooks.com, on the Road Trip Indiana series. Just scroll down to categories, click the Road Trip Indiana series, and there you'll find it. There are links to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Google Play, and other online booksellers. You may choose to purchase the book in ebook or softbound version. An audiobook version is also available on Google Play. There will be 5 more podcasts in this series covering some of the historical markers, courthouses, and underground railroad sites in the southeastern part of Indiana. At the conclusion of this series, I will compile the episodes into an audiobook. The next series will cover Indiana's role in the Civil War. Listeners may also be interested in my book, The Ultimate Day Trip Travel Guide. The 747-page book includes a plethora of day trip destinations in Indiana, a complete tourism guidebook. The book includes local and state parks, museums, golf courses, and much, much more. The book includes all of information on all of Indiana's 92 counties. No traveler in Indiana should be without it. You can also order these books from me, direct, the author, on the webpage. If you wish me to sign the book, just send an email to mossyfeetbooks@gmail.com requesting a signed book on instructions on how you want me to address it. Note, if you send me an email, I will add you to my contact list. Readers on the list will receive an email from me announcing when I publish a new book. If you do not want me to add you to the list, tell me and I will not add you. Listeners to this podcast that want email notification of my new releases can send me an email requesting addition to the list. You can choose to have your name removed at any time. If you browse the website, you will find dozens of sample chapters, one for each of my book. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you for listening.